We leave it as that. So, Mr. Darth Vader, are you ready for this?
I am. I've been
Yeah.
looking forward to this.
We gotta be ready, man.
Oh,
Brace yourself. We're gonna have a good one today. We're not gonna waste your time because we want to make sure we do what we need to do just on time so we can move on. So let's talk about Ye or Ye, Kanye West.
yay!
Yeezy,
It's yay.
Yay, Yay. Okay. So the family of George Floyd plans to file a $200 million lawsuit against Ye. Why exactly is this happening? The family of George Floyd announced Tuesday that they will file a $250 million lawsuit against Ye, the rapper formerly known as Kanye West, formerly comment he made following the comments he made about Floyd's death on a podcast drank champs. What was that comment? Let's find out. So it's not here in the article. I'm still looking. There it goes. Okay. $250 million damage, defamation, infliction of emotional stress. Wow. So the words of Kanye West, according to the family, has inflicted that much pain. According to the family, harassment, misappropriation. This is a big lawsuit. Big lawsuit. So free speech rights do not include harassment, lies, and misrepresentation in the misappropriation of George Floyd's legacy. Some words have consequences, and Mr. West will be made to understand that, said Harper William, another Washington attorney. So I'm going to find the podcast, but in the meantime, I want to ask the question. Doesn't this remind you of what recently has happened to, what is the guy name?
Alex Jones.
Alex Jones, InfoWars.
hmm
Yeah. How does this relate? What do you think?
It's the same thing. They're trying to buy his silence. They're trying to quiet him up and keep him quiet about the truth. They want to silence the truth about what actually happened
Hmm. So,
because they want to keep him propped up as a martyr for everyone to look at and say, "Oh, he was such a wonderful person," when in reality that's not exactly what happened.
there was more to the story, of course. And I know families will argue otherwise. So let me find the thing here. But one thing we have to keep in mind, though, is that George Floyd has been deified. Okay, let's just call it that way. George Floyd is literally considered a god in the black community. So it's almost like every other god you're dealing with in the world, even though you might have an issue with them. I have an issue with like Islam. I know that might sound like a poor analogy. I have an issue with Buddhism, the practice, a lot of idolatry and stuff. But when you go after their gods, they get upset. People don't love when their gods are being challenged, and a lot of black people will say that's not true. But I'm being honest with you. George Floyd is looked upon as a god, and what has happened was horrible. I'm not justifying it. The way he died was sad, and there are factors to consider. Even though we don't want to talk about that, which we will talk about that today, despite what the opposition say. But the thing is, when a person is that elevated, is that high on the spectrum, any things that he said could be taken to that level of retaliation, if I may say, for the lack of word. So let me get my screen. Let me turn it on for you. I found the video. Okay. So this is the official video of Kanye. So this, I'm guessing, comes as a result of Kanye West maybe watching that movie, The Greatest Lie Ever Sold. So let's listen to what he says.
I watched the George Floyd documentary that Candace Owens put up. One of the things that his two roommates said was, they want a tall guy like me.
Kanye West has gone overboard, and this time, his victims are suing him. The rapper has said a lot of unsolicited ideas to the public, but this one is one for the books. He claimed that George Floyd died because of an overdose, and now the family of George will sue Kanye for these nonsense claims. Where did he even get those ideas? Because they're totally ridiculous. We all know who George Floyd is. He's a victim of police brutality, and to some, he's a martyr. He passed away years back in the hands of an officer during an arrest. His death has sparked so many movements, and it's still being defended until this day. The story has come into light again because of Kanye. During one podcast, the rapper couldn't contain himself and said a lot of weird thoughts. Aside from him claiming that Kris Jenner and Drake dated, he also said that George Floyd passed not because of police brutality, but because of an overdose. His bizarre behavior led human rights activists to help the Floyd family. The potential lawsuit was announced recently in a tweet by civil rights activist and attorney Lee Merritt, who said Kanye's comments about Floyd's cause of death undermined his family. They think that even though it is impossible to defame the dead, the Floyd family are still considering action against West over the slur against George. The rapper also added that he watched the documentary his partner in White Lives Matter.
All right, go ahead, operator. I'm sorry, I wasn't watching my screen. Go ahead.
So the problem with that is what this video is putting out is actually misinformation.
Yeah, he's speaking in defense, but I wasn't gonna consider all that. But go ahead.
The autopsy says something completely different. If you actually look at the autopsy, it says there was no physical injuries to the body, neck, or spine.
We did watch the movie on Daily Wire, which I can pull up right now, where Kanye West got that information from. Kanye West didn't make that up. He got it from watching the movie itself, which was another factor that needs to be considered. But again, you gotta go with the point that I said. George Floyd is considered a god. No other view or perspective can be included right now. It's like that's literally the way it is settled. So I guess the fact Kanye West, who has the audacity to speak his mind, often as he does, is always going to have this level of retaliation, you know. And again, knowing his status and how famous he is, certainly I saw that one coming. You know, it wasn't anything shock. And that's what I'm telling you. Like George Floyd literally is considered a god in the Black community because of his death. So here is the part. There is the part of the video, and I did do a reaction to this, and I think it's worth listening again so you understand where Kanye West got his mindset from. He didn't make it up. But when you watch the movie, when you watch The Greatest Lie Ever Sold, I can understand what Kanye West was talking about. For as hard as it is for people to accept in the family, and I do understand, you know, there's a daughter involved, and I sympathize with that. There's children involved. There was an ex, and there was another girlfriend, and there were two other kids supposed to be that weren't his. And we can go with all these things, but again, evidence is evidence. Facts are facts, you know, and emotions and feelings, we have to consider that. We have to put that secondary. We have to look at all the major factors. And we're going to look at a short video as well that you're going to examine for us, Mr. Darth Vader, that sheds a lot of light on this situation. So let's look at this again. This is where Kanye West got his thought from. So if you understand what's happening in this, then you can better understand why Kanye West felt the way he did. Now watch this.
Exactly what he said.
I'm just claustrophobic. That's it.
If I was an officer, I'd be saying, wait a minute, you showed up in a car. You wouldn't get in a car if you thought you were claustrophobic. The officers placed him in a position that's referred to as the maximum restraint position. In other words, he's prone, stomach down, on the ground.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, good morning. We plan to prove to you, beyond a reasonable doubt, that Mr. Chauvin was anything other than innocent. On May 25th of 2020, Mr. Derek Chauvin used excessive and unreasonable force upon the body of Mr. George Floyd until the very breath, no, ladies and gentlemen, until the very life were squeezed out of him. You would agree, Chief,
that from the perspective of Miss Frazier's camera, it appears that Officer Chauvin's knee is on the neck of Mr. Floyd.
Yes.
Would you agree that from the perspective of Officer King's body camera, it appears that Officer Chauvin's knee was more on Mr. Floyd's shoulder blade?
Yes.
They had to have the jury believe that it was a neck restraint, it was the knee on the neck, it was asphyxiation that killed George Floyd. However, there was a ton of evidence that George Floyd consumed a toxic, lethal cocktail of fentanyl and methamphetamine.
Did it appear that Mr. Floyd said, "I ate too many drugs"?
Yes, it did.
Let's put it in perspective. 3 grains of fentanyl on the head of a lead pencil, enough to kill you, enough to kill me. And so they had to continuously inculcate the public to believe that Derek Chauvin intentionally, premeditatedly murdered George Floyd, and drugs had absolutely nothing to do with it. As Lindsay and the toxicologist presented that awful testimony.
Do you recall describing the level of fentanyl as a fatal level of fentanyl?
I recall describing it in other circumstances. It would be a fatal level, yes, in other circumstances. Had Mr. Floyd been home alone in his locked residence with no evidence of trauma, and the only autopsy finding was that fentanyl level, then yes, I would certify his death as due to fentanyl toxicity.
I can't breathe. 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 Here, come on out.
The autopsy is generally broken down by, number one, how the body is presented, and what his height and weight is, and then it goes through the neurological system, exterior trauma, interior trauma, but I go right to the cardiovascular system. And there I look at the heart weight. How much does the heart weigh? And then I take a look for key words. I compare the heart weight to the height and weight of the individual, to what the toxicology report says, and I look for certain words or evidence of something called cardiomegaly. Cardiomegaly means an enlarged heart. And if a person has cardiomegaly, their chances of sudden cardiac arrest rise by 150 times, not 150%, 150 times. That is significant. And then we have the whole issue of the police encounter and the basal metabolic rate rising. Think about him being agitated, chaotic, excited, and his heart is pumping, pumping, pumping. There is zero empirical forensic evidence, medical evidence of any biological mechanism, physiological mechanism that would have interfered with George Floyd's ability to get sufficient oxygenated blood up into the brain. There's zero evidence of that.
There was another.
Yeah. So this is where Kanye West was coming from. That was the basis of his discussion.
And you could see right there, right at the end, where it says no neck or laryngeal injuries noted of any kind.
Nothing. So there was nothing.
That was in the official autopsy report. So nothing the Officer Chauvin did had any effect on George Floyd's death. None whatsoever.
None. And may I say something to anybody who's watching who still believes, right? Who still believes George Floyd had passed away due to police brutality and what Officer Chauvin did to him. Okay, if you still believe that, we're not against you, we're not fighting with you. All we're simply asking is take a deeper look at the situation and get the movie The Greatest Lie Ever Sold and listen to the other side as well. Because what that does for you, at least what he did for me, it has helped me to balance my perspective. For me, I was more like in a gray zone. I was like, I don't know. I'm not holding no Black Matter, Life Matter signs, and I'm not gonna run for the officer. I'm not gonna run against officer. I'm gonna go for George Floyd or against them. I just said I'm just gonna stay my ground and wait until I get further light and knowledge on this stuff. So I've seen all the other side of the story, how the picture was painted with the officer being called racist. I've seen all of that. I watched the news and I heard it, and I've seen the riots that followed. But when you watch The Greatest Lie Ever Sold by Candace Owen, when you watch that and you balance that with what the general perspective and narrative is, it is humanly impossible not to properly balance your perspective on this thing. It is humanly impossible. It will be disingenuous for me to say I don't see where Kanye is coming from. I understand where he's coming from. All you have to do is to watch the movie. You will come to a different conclusion as well, because it's not because somebody's brainwashing you. It's just because the evidence is so strong.
The other thing to add here is you got to look past your own emotions and prejudice here to actually be able to open your mind enough to see the truth that is being presented to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because if you don't, then you're going to be closed-minded and you're not going to be able to take that information in and process it properly.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. So, wait a minute. So I'm reading your comment here, Megan. Oh, heartbroken van, you changed your name. So man in California died less 2 months before George Floyd named Edward Bronstein. Similar manner? Really? Interesting. Didn't seem to make the news. I wonder if he was a white man. As I'm sure he probably was. Okay, how about we move on now with the clip? I'm going to let you explain that one, Mr. Darth Vader, because you can highlight much more what's happening here. So let me make sure this is full screen, unmuted. Mute myself.
So what this is the body cam footage of the police officer who first came in contact with George Floyd.
Mm-hmm. You couldn't watch this on YouTube without signing on two different, you have to say, I understand. Yes, I agree. You can't just watch this video unless you you agree to whatever content is in there. When YouTube does that, that means the content is something you're not supposed to be. The average person can't just watch that. At least kids are not supposed to be watching this. So, okay, let's watch the video, and then I'll pause and let me know where you want us to comment and so on.
Yeah, we're not going to watch the whole thing.
Yeah, just 1 minute of that.
About 2 minutes.
Gentlemen. Sir. The driver in there?
Blue Benz.
Which one?
Okay.
Which one?
Yep. Just head back in. They're moving around a lot. Let me see your hands.
Damn, man.
Stay in the car. Let me see your other hand.
I'm sorry.
Let me see your other hand.
Please, Miss Officer.
Both hands.
Do nothing.
Put your fucking hands up right now. Let me see your other hand.
All right. What I do though? What do we do?
Put your hand up there. Put your fucking hand.
Okay, Darth Vader. You said an hour and 51, 1 minute and 51 seconds. 1 second.
Okay, you're gonna have to go frame by frame.
All right. So
it's just the quickest glimpse.
All right, let's look at that again. All right, we're supposed to be right there. Yeah, it's right around here. Are we seeing it?
Right there. Can you see that? When he's got his mouth open?
Yeah.
That white tab on his tongue? If you go back, you can use the comma key to go back frame by frame, and the period button to go forward frame by frame.
Put your fucking hand up there. Jesus Christ. Keep your fucking hands on the wheel. Keep your fucking hands on the wheel.
I'm sorry, Miss Officer.
Who else is in the car?
This is my
Put your foot back in.
I'm sorry, Miss Officer. I'm so sorry. God dang, man.
Yeah, I'm not able to catch it fully, but I saw quickly how it had right here. If you watching his mouth, there is something in his mouth here. But some people could argue,
And right there when he puts his head on the steering wheel, that's him swallowing it.
What we do?
Put your hand up there.
Right there. It's right in between here. You sent me another picture that is worth taking a look at.
Yeah.
That means
it shows it better.
Yeah, there it is. Right there. So somebody might say, "Oh, that's edited." That's it's kind of hard to deny this. You know, there's so much people do with pictures nowadays. I can see how they're gonna argue some of this. They will say that's nonsense. But it did appear in the video he had something in his mouth. It did appear in the video that he had something in his mouth.
And even in the video and the body cam footage, you heard in court that it sounded like he said, I took too many drugs.
He did say that. Yeah, he did say that. He did say that in the video. So that confirms what's happening here in this encounter with the officers. Man, it's just a sad situation altogether. To be honest, it's just sad.
So quite frankly, the police had nothing to do with his death.
That's what this will mean. If he had this much drug in his system, fentanyl
and meth.
Oh gosh, but you know, when you read into fentanyl, you don't need a whole lot to do damage. I mean, just not even a little, half of a rice, I would say.
3 grains. 3
2
grains.
of,
and we're talking about a grain that's the size of sand.
Man, that's a tough one.
That's how much fentanyl it'd take. 3 grains would kill 2 people.
Oh gosh, where do we go from here? You know, each person have to come to their conclusion when it comes to this. You know, we've come to our own. I've come to my own. Watching the movie and watching the other side of the story and getting a perspective of Black Lives Matter and what they've done, their history and so on, I came to my own conclusion. You know, George Floyd was really a sad one. Drugs were a major factor. And I know he has sons and daughter. He has a daughter well, he has one daughter who has an issue with what Kanye West said, and I would say we have to sympathize with the daughter. But
I mean,
Daddy
I
had
can
a drug.
understand that,
Yeah,
but
Daddy had a drug addiction, and it was very obvious. He had a drug
to a
addiction.
certain degree, she's also got to understand that the truth is the truth.
Yeah, for as hard as it is, you know.
And she needs to come to terms with that.
Yeah, eventually.
And hiding away from it and trying to deny it is not going to help her in the long term.
It's not. It's not. I agree. So let's move on now to part 2 of our video. We'll let you guys come to your own conclusion when it comes to this. We've had our own. But I'll tell you what. Quickly. One thing that is beautiful about truth, no matter how uncomfortable it is, Jesus
Or as
says,
I like to say, no matter how ugly it is.
Yeah. Well, no matter how ugly it is, Jesus says, it does one thing for you. It sets you free. It sets you free. It sets you free. There's some things you hear, there's some news you find out about. It hurts. It is painful. It is hard to accept, but it sets you free. I a couple of years ago, I had found out that I had a hole in my heart. I was born with a condition that has gotten worse over time. It's called Nepsi anomaly. It's really like a heart murmur. But what that does is one side of my heart was working over time for the other side that was weak. And there was a hole, a leaky heart. That's what I had. Born and raised with it. 1 out of 10,000 people has that issue. I happen to be one of the lucky ones. So when I went to the doctor and they told me that truth, for as hard as it was, I knew I was not doing good. I knew that I couldn't lift too many heavy. Anything over 40 pounds was difficult. I was getting tired when I was playing basketball, and I was getting tired too quickly. My heart would beat for like 48 hours nonstop, like I'm on a treadmill. Imagine what that's like. You on a treadmill and you're totally exhausted. The natural person hearts will go back to normal. My hearts will continue beating for 48 hours, and I'll be sweating like I'm working out consistently. It's weird. I go to sleep like that. So when I went to the doctors, I went to Hershey Medical Center, and they checked me out, and they were able to figure it out. I had to go through a number of tests and everything. But I'm glad I did that, because if I did not find out the truth concerning my heart condition, I was going to die within 3 years. So having found this out, because the heart was already so big, so swollen, I was prone for a heart disease. I still am to a condition, but the thing is, with the surgery that was done, it gives me another probably 10 to 15 years. So the surgery can hold on for a period of time, but it's not it doesn't fix the entire problem, but you have a longer period of time you can live. So, and I'm so glad I did. It was uncomfortable. I had to look at myself and say, I wish I didn't know. I wish nobody told me. It's uncomfortable. I don't want to hear this. Or I could just face the truth of that condition and do something about it. I'm so glad that I did. I feel much better now. My heart is better now. I'm lifting better. I go to the gym. I'm able to lift like 160 something pounds, bench press and all that. So it's like, I'm so glad for that. It was hard for me to accept, but I'm glad for it. But he has put me in a position where I'm able to deal with myself better and addressing, knowing what my limitation is. I can't run on the court anymore, playing basketball like I used to. So, but all of that has brought about freedom in my life. I'm just saying this to say, if a person struggles with accepting something that is truthful, you have to remember when the truth comes, it's never to offend you. Sometimes it is your way out. It is your deliverance. It is what's going to make you. It's going to make you a person. It really is. It's uncomfortable. It's the ugly truth. It's the naked truth. But nevertheless, we need that. We need to hear the truth concerning George Floyd's situation, no matter how tough it is. As a culture, particularly Black people, we need to get these truths correctly, or else we're going to remain in bondage to the mentality of what we think about police and the way we think about our culture. There is a major mental plantation of slavery of the mind of the Blacks in this country. that Black folks need to be set free from, and the narrative has to change. The way things are presented have to change. The rest of the story has to be told, or else we're gonna remain in that slave mentality, and that's not safe. That's really bad, and that's deadly. That's deadly. If I didn't know about my condition, I would die. And for Black people not to know about the truth concerning some of these situations, death is soon to follow. It's happening progressively, and we can see it in our communities. We're not healing people by hiding the truth from them. That's not fair. We're not healing them. We're not helping them. That's not right. So
in order to heal, you need to hear the truth.
Simple as that. Simple as that. Nothing more, nothing less.